So I've said before, I've got no problem with tactical voting. I like tactical voting. I think it's, to be honest, in the system that we are in currently, being first past the post, in many cases, tactical voting for some people could be the only way they could potentially oust their Tory MP. It could be the only way and only option they've really got. So I fully endorse tactical voting for people in the UK. I think it's a good idea. I think it should be done. The problem, the problem comes is that first of all, a lot of the tactical voting movements we've seen in the past have not widely publicized themselves enough for people to be aware that actually, if I want to sort of remove my Tory councillor, I need to vote Lib Dem or I need to vote Labour or etc. etc. Those that message really hasn't broken through in most cases, unfortunately, and that has been the result of a couple of times that we've seen tactical voting in certainly the past couple of elections to try and sort of oust the Tories. Um, Unfortunately, those movements haven't really sunk in, nor has the message really hit home to the people in these areas to vote tactically. Not only that, sometimes you really, really need at least one, or if not both, of the parties to be endorsing this move as well. And that also in the past has not happened. So while I am, again, for tactical voting, I think it makes perfect sense for many people. The big problem has been these groups organizing and getting their message across. But we are now seeing a movement form again, targeting, as we are about to sort of read into here, over 62 seats controlled by Tories to sort of oust them. So the big question is now is, given that there is potentially all possible likelihood of a general election happening next year, will this movement be able to get the message across to these people that if you want to get rid of your Tory MP, you have to vote tactically? So hopefully, and again, I am very hopeful, this message will sink in this time. So um, let's have a read into this to find out who they're targeting and certainly the areas that we are, again, looking at as well. Because, like I say, if you know anyone in these areas, like I say, let them know about this movement. And Winners One, I believe the group is called. I think they have a website, so go and check them out to see where they are targeting and can you vote certainly in the next general election to certainly affect this. So as always, guys, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel. Like I say, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a motivation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. Again, there's the YouTube thank you button and, of course, the Pony Club as well. So over we go today to The Guardian with their story on this, of the title of Campaign Will Target 62 Seats to Oust Tories by Tactical Voting. A major campaign will target more than 60 seats to oust Conservatives by tactical voting in order to build a Commons majority amongst progressive parties. The campaigners behind the drive are warning that Labour's current poll lead is only on weak foundations, and the party must have a strategy for power sharing. And I agree. At the moment, the polls are showing a real big Labour dominance. But remember, Theresa May found out, much to her dismay, that the polls said one thing, but what ended up happening, certainly in the general election, turned out to be something completely else, which completely destroyed that big lead that apparently the Conservatives had. So, beware the polls. I agree with that. Certainly beware the polls, because they may not be as truthful during a general election. And of course, certain things can come up during a general election, and that can impact how the turnout of that general election really becomes. So yeah, I am definitely sort of behind that as we sort of go forward, potentially into a general election next year. So back to it. The Win as One campaign from the think tank Compass will campaign for candidates in 62 seats, dubbed the progressive, dubbed a quote progressive tragedy, where a combined progressive vote has outnumbered right-wing parties but delivered a conservative victory. The group will prioritise candidates who are backing electoral reform and proportional representation. Again, that's good. I like that. The Labour conference in September overwhelmingly backed a motion calling on the party to embrace proportional electoral proportion system, though there is no guarantee that the proposal will be in the party manifesto. Key allies of Keir Starmer are deeply unconvinced by the reforms and believe that they would just jeopardise future Labour victories and act as a distraction before the next election, which could be fuel for Tory attacks. Again, I agree, but I think reforming the voting system is very, very long overdue, and it certainly needs to be changed. And luckily, as we've said, this momentum for change, to really changing the voting system, is building. It is building so much at the moment, even more than it was in 2012. But back to it. Starmer is particularly keen for the party to give no quarter to any suggestion that it could do deal with the SNP because of the party's campaign in Scotland and the damage a Tory attack did back in 2015. Launching the campaign in The Guardian, Compass said that fresh data shows that even the current healthy poll leads for Labour may deliver only a hung parliament or even a smaller majority for Starmer. In polling for Compass, voters appeared to reject the idea that the electoral reform should not be a priority, and in fact, in favour of parties working collaboratively. Compass has previously campaigned for a progressive alliance for parties at general elections, whether Labour, Lib Dem, and even Greens to stand down in favour of each other to have the best chance of defeating the Conservatives. And again, that has been in the past the biggest problem, where you've had these candidates say, yes, let's go for progressive alliance, and then you have had the Lib Dems continue to stand a candidate, or Labour, or even the Greens continue to do that, even though they are saying, oh no, progressive alliance, progressive alliance. As we said before, it's not just the message that needs to get through to people, but it's also parties as well that need to get involved in it. And very often it has been one of those two things that has just fallen completely flat, meaning that the attempt at creating this sort of, progressive vote for tactical voting has unfortunately failed in the past. But back to it. The survey commissioned by Compass to mark the launch of the campaign to tie in with the 3-year anniversary of the 2019 Tory landslide reveals deep dissatisfaction with our political system, and suggesting that any future Labour government working alone would face a huge uphill battle to tackle the big challenges of our time. A YouGov poll shows that 63% of the public think that Labour's poll lead is largely against the government, while only 11% saying it is based on support of the party itself. So that is incredibly worrying. That is incredibly worrying because you've got people here who are only going to put a Labour government in because it is against the current government. So there really, really is, and certainly a need for Starmer, if they do get in, for Labour really, really having to deliver once they are in. But back to it. Compass has said that the analysis of the current polling data predicts at least a 28% Labour poll lead would now probably result in an 8% lead in the election itself. It said that Labour would need a bigger swing than in 1945 or 1997 to win a majority, and that the boundary changes and the new rules on voter ID were also likely to affect Labour voters, as we've talked about before. Those are going to be a big challenge at the next general election because those two things, we don't know how it's going to potentially affect it. So that is very right for us to sort of really worry about and think about how this could affect the strategy going into the next general election. The poll also found, for Compass, found that 73% of voters believe that the political system mostly serves the rich and powerful, and 71% say it does not work for ordinary people. They also found that 63% believe that the current system puts too much power in the hands of a small number of swing voters. Again, like we've said before, voting reform, massive. The groundswell behind it is massive, but no party has really flirted with the idea yet to shall we say, to too much success. But I think it's there. And I think that the PR movement pushing the way it is is having a big, big impact. Because I've said it before, there is now far more of a groundswell for reforming the political system than there ever was, certainly back in 2012. It has also found widespread support for tactical voting, where 71% of those who say that they will vote in favour of progressive parties at the next election and would support an electoral alliance which would result in candidates standing aside for the best placed progressive candidate to beat the Conservatives. Proportional representation had less support, but still a majority of voters, with 56% of the people now backing the change to the voting system. And that, by the way, again, has built even more, even more. So this is really, really good that this percentage is rising all the time. But back to it. Neil Lawson, Compass's director and spokesperson for the Win as One, said this: "There is now an undeniable demand from the country that not only in a new government but a new political system. The polling stands as a clear warning and a lesson to the Labour Party that it is refusing to back proportional representation and unwilling to work with others. This poll shows overwhelming voter dissatisfaction with the way of the two-party system is failing. Ignoring this risk puts the party on the wrong side of the public and history. The campaign will be aimed at England and Wales and makes the case that the smallest parties, such as the Greens, must be inclusive, sort of incentivized to take part, and that tactical voting advice must be rooted in local issues." So, will it happen? Hopefully, I'd hope so. But again, like I say, the two main issues: if you've had the message of tactical voting, unfortunately, hasn't gotten through, or in the case of sometimes the parties just simply have not agreed to stand down. Um, we hope this does get through, but I agree. I think there is, as the poll shows, there's a lot of political dissatisfaction, and I think that now you're getting an even bigger groundswell for like reforming the voting system, or at least having some major substantial change in the way that we operate and form our governments. That is almost certainly true. So the fact that you've also got there that big number of people who feel, well, there's too much power given to sort of swing voters. Again, this is where proportional representation can sort of really help out. So will this go forward? I really hope so. I don't know. But to be honest, as we've said before, the movement and the groundswell for changing the voting system for PR is far, far stronger than it was back in 2012. And there is even more, grassroots support. They're more organized. Things are happening. Will we get it at the next general election? Unlikely. Will we get it in the next parliament? Unlikely. But this is growing. It's growing ever more, and that is good. That is really good to see. So eventually, yes, and as I've always said, any fight for sort of this type of reform is going to be a very, very long one, and is needed to be a very long sustained campaign on this. So like I say, as I always say, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Of course, go check out Win as One to see if they are doing anything in your area that you can take part in if you want to take part in this. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, guys, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.